don't know the term lobbying. Lobbying is just a nice word for bribe, whereby you pay these lobbyists in Washington, and the lobbyists will go to the Congress people which are elected and which make policy, and they will influence these politicians to make decisions. Okay, so we're going through the timeline. A quick recap. Today is the 19th, no results. The OAS just said that they don't like what's happening in Guyana. On the 4th of March, the OAS and Americans consulate, they made a joint statement saying that they don't like the tabulation, okay? The elections happened December 2nd. Sorry, the elections happened March 2nd. In December 2019, on the 10th, the United States ambassador distanced themselves from a statement made by Dr. Ellis. When I went to read the publication, Dr. Ellis, he could have said the United States would be committed to work with any future government, but it specifically said the PPPC government. So one will have to ask themselves, what happened from the time the PPPC was labeled a narco state to now this good favor? And here's the key. In April 17, 2019, news source, a Gordon Mosley Media, ran this episode. Here it is. I hope you can listen. And we'll analyze this.
This is your News Source Evening Bulletin for today, Wednesday, the 17th day of April in the year 2019. Here's what we're tracking tonight. Opposition leader Barra Jagdeo today defended his party's hiring of a U.S. lobbying firm to represent the interests of the party in the United States. The lobbying firm Mercury Public Affairs is being paid just over $34 million for its work for the PPP. At his weekly press conference today, Mr. Jagdeo told reporters that the money to pay the firm came from donors and supporters of the party, and the money was transferred from Guyana.
Oh, you want to know the source of our funds? You sound like the government. Well, yeah, it's the PPP collects, raises funds through donations, and like any other party, and that's where we fund these from.
Jagdeo said the party's executive approved the hiring of the company, and he's happy with the credentials of the company.
We're very happy with the firm. We're happy with its credentials. We're happy that the firm is a bipartisan firm, both Democrats and Republicans. And we're very pleased. We badly needed a presence in Washington, because a lot of the opinions formed in the U.S. or in Washington from many organizations, including the multilateral financial institutions, the OAS, and of course the U.S. government, could be tainted by the lies that APNU have been telling in these areas, or the misrepresentation of issues.
Again, I'm not a tech guy, so I'm sorry for this kind of video. However, the content is important. This is Mr. Jagdeo saying that they need a presence in Washington, and that is sometime in April 2019, okay? Remember, the American embassy distanced himself from a statement made by their employee predicting the PPP win, but this is in April of that year. They hired this lobbying firm called Mercury Publications, claiming that APNU is saying lies. But remember, it's the same United States government who had labeled them a narco state based on the CIA WikiLeaks cable. Okay, let's continue to listen and analyze.
The opposition leader said he wants organizations based in the U.S. and the U.S. government to have a balanced view of what is happening in Guyana, and that is the reason behind hiring the firm. The lobbying firm hired by the PPP is currently one of the companies on the probe by the U.S. Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller, who has been examining Russian interference in the last U.S. elections. The company has also found itself facing several violations for ethics and has been charged and fined in the past. Mr. Jagdeo said none of...
Okay, did you guys hear that? They're being investigated by Robert Mueller, Okay, this is key also.
Of that worries him, since the company is an effective firm, and he has reviewed its work and is pleased with its capacity.
So the thing is that this matter, hiring a firm, was discussed at the level of the executive of the party. And secondly, I'm very happy with Mercury Public Affairs. I've reviewed their work, they're a very effective firm. And that's what we need, an effective firm to counter the lies being told by APNU in Washington.
Really good your money's worth, $34 million.
We're getting every cent of it worth. Every cent worth is worth it.
Okay, this is Mr. Jack Dio in the April 17 broadcast saying they're getting every cent of their money's worth by this lobbying firm. What does Mr. Jack Dio know that we don't already know? Think about that, okay?
OAS on your behalf or has formulated documents OAS on your behalf about the political situation in Guyana?
I will brief you further when the elections come on these matters. The thing is that I'm not going to share all the details of our engagement and so the day-to-day working of the company, but they're working on our behalf.
The opposition leader refused to divulge information about some of the work that the company will handle for his party. More news coming up in just a moment.
Okay, so I'll share the link for that video in case the audio was bad. But some key points, key takeaway. The OAS was mentioned in that video that you just saw, and the OAS is or was one of the critical observer missions to what's happening in Guyana, okay? And this happened in April 2017, April 8, and probably 10 to 11 months before the elections, okay? So what lobbying does, as I said before, they go to politicians and the lobbyists, and they pay them money and tell them this is what we need in return, okay? The lobbyists fund, sorry, my capacity is going to be over shortly, so I'll try to make it quick. The lobbyists will contribute to the politicians' campaign, and in return, implement policies in favor of what the firm is asking. So this is why the OAS is condemning what's happening in Guyana, because they expect that their money's worth, according to Mr. Jagdio, must be realized. Now, Mr. Jagdio is the same president who served two terms and took a matter to the Caribbean Court of Justice asking for the Constitution to be rechanged so that he could serve another term. But they lost that case, okay? And even their former president from the PPP, Ramatari, said it's a good thing, the decision was good. So let's tie all of this in together, okay? There's a quick story about Equatorial Guinea. It's called the Kuwait of Africa because it's very rich in oil, okay? Rachel Maddow did a documentary on that country, I think it was in 2017, April, about how Rex Tillerson, which is a former CEO for Exxon, they were paying just the president of that country and their family had a personal account in Washington, D.C., where hundreds of millions of US dollars will be deposited in this account. The father is rich, the son is filthy rich, and the country is dirt poor. This is why I was warning my Guyanese brothers and sisters that, yes, we're happy that there's oil, but do not get excited as yet, okay? There's certain reforms very necessary in the Guyana Constitution so that there will be more transparency. Rachel Maddow did that episode, and she showed that Exxon has practiced this over and over, okay? So all the elections debacle in Guyana is all about the newfound oil and geopolitical forces that are trying to control it, okay? So let's go back the timeline. After 1992 and the PPP won, between 1992 and 2015, before the coalition won, or some even before that, the United States was uncomfortable with the PPPC government, labeled them a narco state, took away a lot of visas, okay? The APNU won in 2015. We know about the no confidence motion that toppled the APNU government. Then the PPPC General Secretary Barry Jagdeo hired Mercury Public Affairs. I'm sorry, I'm rushing because I don't want the video to be long. Hired Mercury Public Affairs, which is a Washington lobbying firm, to articulate their position in Washington, okay? Then in December 10, 2019, Dr. Ellis wrote in his journal about the likelihood that the PPPC would be returned to government, okay? And talk about the commitments the PPPC had made. I am certain that during the lobbying and during the $34 million payout, the PPPC made an arrangement with the Washington government to get back in power. And it's probably some sweetheart deal for oil that is happening. I don't know the full details, but all of my research point me to that. So after the United States Embassy had to distance themselves from that, remember Jagdeo said, and he laughed and said, we'll see when the elections results come. And then he said, we're getting all of the money's worth. All those are clues to tell me this thing has been planned, okay? Then sometime before, Mr. Jagdeo said that he would not accept any other results if they don't win. How can you be so sure of people's minds before the election day unless you had made a deal prior to that, okay? Then the elections came, which went fine, and the next day they said Yes, sorry, a call was coming in. The next day, the observers said, they're not happy with what was going on. Then the EU walked out and so forth. Then the Region 4 RO was about to make a declaration, and they didn't know what was in this man's mind, but they were protesting the declaration, okay? Then you see how the behavior of the ABC ambassadors and the EU ambassadors, how they acted, okay? Then the OAS, which America controls, all of them seem not to be fair brokers in this situation. Quick reference. Confessions of an Economic Hitman will tell you about American strategy, how to build and keep their empire, and how large loans will be arranged by the American government to go to very poor countries to build infrastructure for those big companies in that country. So all the benefit of the loans go to the companies, but the people are left with the debt. Then America goes after, or the World Bank or the IMF say, hey, you guys can't repay the debt. Sell us your oil cheap, okay? Confessions of an Economic Hitman. I'll send the link, and there are links on YouTube and so forth. I'll send links, okay? So, all this information tells me that the decision was made. Now, what can we do? Okay, this is important. Jagdeo went ahead and got a lobbying firm to represent their interests and caught APNU, AFC off guard. First bell. Second bell is the Region 4 declaration. Many of us are living in the United States and we have the power of the vote. Let us call our representatives, and more specifically those in New York City area and Queens that have a large Guyanese population, and ask them simply, why is America risking their integrity by taking sides in the political process in Guyana? Also contact the media houses, Rachel Maddow, Joy Reid, and tell them about the story of Equatorial Guinea and